Hi Math, I'm Andy. Let's use the laws of exponents to simplify some of these expressions that contain exponents. Now, expressions are simplified when there are no common factors with the integers and there are no negative exponents with the bases. So, one thing to notice is really the only thing that's happening here is multiplication. There's no addition or subtraction. And we know that we can multiply things in any order. So to help myself out, I'm going to expand this out so it kind of collects like things. So I have 18 times a squared over 24 times a to the fifth times b to the negative 1. Now, what I notice is I can work with the integers first, and I can use some of my rules of exponents to simplify the exponents. So, the 18 over 24. I notice that 18 and 24 have a common factor of 6. 6 times 3 is 18, and 6 times 4 is 24. So rewriting 18 as 6 times 3 and 24 as 6 times 4, I can cancel out the 6 divided by 6 at the top and bottom. So I'm just left with 3 times 4. Now that a squared over a to the fifth, I can apply my quotient rule with exponents where we're going to subtract. So the a's is really going to be a squared minus 5. So it's going to be a to the 2 minus 5, which is going to give me an a to the negative 3. Now, a to the negative 3 is the same as 1 over a to the third. So I can write that as 1 over a to the third. And finally, the b to the negative 1, well, negative exponents, I like to think of them as movements. And so what it does is it takes this b to the negative 1 and it moves it into the numerator as a positive exponent. So b to the 1. And because I'm with fractions, I'm going to write it over 1. And so now when I simplify my numerator, this is a product of 3 times 1 times b to the first. That gives me 3 times b to the first, or just 3b. And in my denominator, I have 4 times a to the third times 1. That just leaves me with 4 times a to the third in my denominator. So notice I'm simplified because I no longer have any common factors. I have no negative exponents. And so 3b over 4a to the third is our final solution. Looking at the second problem, again, we're only dealing with multiplication. And so I can kind of use my multiplication rules that I can kind of multiply this in any order. So the parentheses kind of don't really mean much here, and so it's just a big string of things being multiplied together. Now I can use my exponential rules where I have the same bases raised to different exponents. We add those exponents together. So when I look at the x and the y terms, negative 2 plus 4 is positive 2. So I'm going to have x to the positive 2. Y to the first times y to the negative 2, that's going to be y to the negative 1. 1 plus negative 2 is negative 1. And we have integers that we can multiply together as well. Negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. So I have 15x squared y to the negative 1. No, I'm not simplified because I still have a negative exponent. So I know negative exponents are movements. We're going to take the y to the negative 1 and we're going to rewrite it as 1 over y to the first. Now my 15 and my x squared, those stay in the numerator, and that y to the negative 1 is going to drop down into the denominator as a positive exponent, leaving me with 15x squared y over y to the first. Now my last problem here, 12 over a squared times 1 over 30 times a to the negative 5. So again, because this is just multiplication, there's no addition or subtraction, I can kind of combine it into 12 over 1, or 12 times 1, that's the numerator, and I have a squared times a 30 times an a to the negative 5. Now, down below in my denominator, I have like bases with different exponents, so I can add those exponents. 2 plus negative 5 is negative 3. 12 times 1 is 12. The 30 is still in the denominator, but this is now a to the negative 3. And as before, we know negative exponents are actually movements. They're not negative numbers. And so we're going to take that a to the negative 3 and we're going to move it up into the numerator. So I would have 12 a to the third over 30. Now I'm still not completely simplified because 12 and 30 share a common factor. And if you're not sure what to figure that out, is just to say, I know they're both even, so I can divide them at least by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. Now 6 and 15, those also share a common factor of 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. And so 12 and 30, the largest common factor is 6. And so what I can think about this is 12 is really 6 times 2, and then we still have the a to the third upstairs, and 30 is really 6 times 5. And because I have a 6 in my numerator and a 6 in my denominator, those cancel out, and so it leaves me with just a 2a to the third in my numerator and a 5 in my denominator. So in the end, 12 over a squared times 1 over 30a to the negative 5th can be simplified as 2a cubed over 5.